This is the story of how I met my garden goals. I grew in a small space using 4 raised beds, 2 green stalks, 1 elevated raised bed, and 5 large pots for growing herbs. I'll be sharing my successes, my failures, my discoveries, but the goal was to grow 1 pound per square foot or 100 pounds of food. The best producers in the garden were the cut and come again vegetables. Early spring, I grew turnips mostly for the roots and for some leaves. But in the fall, I grew turnips in a new bed with a focus on growing the greens. I grew 10 pounds of turnips. Early spring, I grew Swiss chard, and I grew it as a cut and come again vegetable. So I had Swiss chard from frost to frost. Another super producer in my garden was spinach. I took a package of 2-year-old seeds. I emptied the entire packet into my elevated raised bed and let nature take its course. I had amazing germination, and I was able to harvest from one bed 3 times using the cut and come again. So I had ample spinach. I grew over 3 pounds of spinach. Next up was the lettuce. I sowed lettuce seeds monthly for succession harvest. I sowed 1.5 square feet of mustards, and I was able to harvest my plants planted very closely. I was able to harvest from each plant 3 times, so I had an abundance of mustards, and I had over 4 pounds of mustard greens. My other cut and come again vegetable was bunching onions. I didn't weigh it, but I had plenty. Finally, after 60 days of warm weather, I was able to harvest fruiting vegetables. I grew indeterminate cherry tomatoes, and I was able to harvest 2 to 3 cups of cherry tomatoes per day. Later in the season, I was able to harvest peppers on a weekly basis. I had pickled peppers, I had powdered peppers, and I was able to freeze peppers for the winter. I had marconis, banana peppers, and shishito peppers. I grew 8.9 pounds of tomatoes and 4.8 pounds of peppers. By midsummer, my harvest basket replaced the grocery store. The summer heat also yielded green beans and wax beans, and I grew so much more than I could eat. And I actually found out that my family didn't enjoy green beans as much as I did. And I harvested 8 pounds of green beans. And now let's talk about my garden flops. My potatoes this year were a total flop. My beds and bags were infested with grubs, so my potatoes never had a chance to produce. The only harvest was from my red Norlings, a fast-producing potato. The Yukon Golds and my Gypsy Pink are main season potatoes and never had a chance to develop good roots. So going forward, I will always sift compost if I don't know the source of the compost, just to ensure that I don't have pests in my beds and bags. So overall, I was hoping to harvest at least 40 pounds of potatoes, and I didn't even get close this year. But the 5.5 pounds I harvested tasted amazing. The other problem in the garden was with my squash. I had the most beautiful fruit. I had no problems with pests like vine borers or squash bugs. My only problem with my squash was powdery mildew. So much for the bed. Now let's discuss the best of time, space, and effort in my garden, and that would have been my homegrown herbs. The production of my herbs can pay for the full upkeep of my home garden. Experts say pollinators are attracted to your garden by the flowers, but in my opinion, it is the herbs that will keep them in your garden. And herbs in pots can be moved around your garden to make excellent companions for your vegetable plants. I grew a great variety of herbs include yarrow, thyme, oregano, celery, and rosemary. But my great discovery for this growing season was that of celery leaves. I will never grow celery for stalks anymore because all of the flavor and all of the punch is in the leaves, and they preserve so beautifully. So from going forward, I will definitely be growing celery for the leaves. To grow celery for the leaves, you have to do cut and come again. You have to take those leaves off so that the stems will not become robust. You also have to do a little less watering because you want leaf growth and not water storage in stems. The best tool in my garden was my garden plan and journal. Now, I've always kept a gardening journal where I logged my planting dates, the plants I planted, and the location in the yard. But this year, I've expanded my journal to include reference material like soil germination temperatures, days from germination to harvest, spacing guides, companion planting instruction. So I created a journal where I can not only keep great notes, but I'll always have my references at hand with me while I'm outside. So if you need some help planting your garden, or if you just need a quick little reference to keep with you while you're working in the yard. If you're interested in the journal, there's a link in the description. I believe this year's success was due to good planning. And this year, I've kept my garden growing by extending my season indoors using hydroponics. I've grown lettuce, I've grown pak choi, I'm growing tomatoes, herbs, and microgreens. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you many blessings for a new year. Have an amazing day.